good to see all of you. This isn't quite as big a crowd as we had the first time. Remember we had it all the way over here and people were hanging out the windows, but I think it might have been the amount of alcohol.
Yeah, and you brought the church too.
I brought the church?
Yeah.
Now that's a turn of events. I'm just waiting for Wayne to get happy. Okay. This is the third time we've done this. 2 years ago, 2023.
Yep.
We were talking about, and we were so surprised to see such a good crowd. At that time, we had 3 books available, and because we didn't have enough poets to read, we actually had to bring in poets that had not yet been published by us. That's no longer a problem. As you can see from the sign out there, there's what's 10, Nancy, do you know, 10, 11 books?
I think it's 9 or 10.
Yeah, and there's more coming. So, and it's been a surprising success to me because when we started this, we decided to do it a very unconventional way. What we wanted to do was to create a way for the money that each book made to go straight to the author and skip the middle. And what we wanted to do was to facilitate the publication of books and make sure that people who hadn't been published or hadn't been published enough would be published and would be seen in public and readings and so forth. And it's been wildly successful beyond anything I expected. A lot of that has to do with Nancy Owen Nelson, who moved here. She moved here and she saw what needed to be done, and she just went to work at promoting this thing and putting people together. And then everybody, the board that has come in to help support this. There is no financing for this press. It's done just out of pocket by whoever wants to make a donation, usually the board members. So if you're not taking a cut from any of the sales, you got to get the money from somewhere. So if you want to make a clean donation to the press, we welcome that. But what we really want you to do is to buy the books from the authors. So we're going to have 3 poets reading tonight and a photographer who you may know, who's done a little work around, and we're trying to help him out. Anyway, our first poet tonight is Donna Geise. She began writing after she retired as a literature and composition teacher. Expressing meaningfulness beyond sentimentality, creating accessible poems in a conversational tone, and the linking of sound and sense are her ultimate goals. Her poetry collection, Searching for a Song, published this year at 7 Points Press. Please welcome Donna Geise.
Thank you. First, I'd like to read the book's title poem, Searching for a Song, which is dedicated to Tom Hendricks, who built a wall to commemorate his great-great-grandmother, Tillanay, and her walk to find a singing river. The poem's speaker is Tom Hendricks. I chose the title because, like Tillanay, we are all searching for a song, a purpose, an inspiration, which is the overarching connection of these poems. Searching for a song. Grandmother pulled me onto her knees, tucked me into a quilt, and wrapped me in words that tell of a young Yuchi girl and her search for a singing river. Tillanay's journey began in the 1830s with a forced 600-mile march from Alabama, where she heard the Nunanse sing, to Oklahoma, where she spent the winter searching for a singing river. Finding none, she set out on this illegal return trip, traveling alone at night, this child of the sun, carrying a tag bestowed by the shiny buttons, a tag that stole both name and dignity, replacing them with a number, 59. Guided only by the rising sun and confronted by obstacles of every kind, Tilane remembered her own grandmother's lessons and overcame the arduous hindrances of a 5-year trek that crescendoed with a singing river, and love and happiness with a man called Jonathan that she could never call husband because the shiny buttons denied her citizenship. She said, "This was my great-great-grandmother, and her story is truth, a truth that pulled at my spirit, tucked into my soul, and wrapped me in a song I carried into adulthood." Years later, meeting with Yuchi elder Minnie Long for 3 days and 3 nights, she told me I must remember Tilane's story, and to do so with stones, reasoning that we shall all pass this earth, only the stones will remain. My own journey to build Wijuhapi is a journey of numbers. 8.5 million pounds of stones, 7,920 feet of snaking wall, 2,700 pairs of work gloves, 120 stones from around the world, 33 years of gathering, 22 wheelbarrows, 3 trucks, 2 walls, 1 for each journey, 1 stone for each step. All this so the rocks will cry out to tell the story of a young girl in her search for a singing river that brought her home so I could have a story. Thank you. As Jake said, I started my journey as a writer as an English teacher where I graded essays and didn't get to write any. And when I retired, I just started dabbling and found a writers group in Huntsville and found a community of support. So I began entering state poetry society contests and placing in some of those, and I promised myself that I would take my time and just do that for a little while, maybe work on a chapbook, and then later on, 2 or 3 years later, maybe try to get something published. I would like to thank 7 Points Press for publishing what I hope is just my first book. Thank you, 7 Points Press. I sometimes write about how perception changes when mature age arrives. In this poem, as in many of my poems, I preface my insights with words like perhaps or maybe. Not because my thoughts are tentative, but because my thoughts aren't definitive. They are just my thoughts, and here's one such poem that's called Winter Beginning. Maybe winter is a beginning. Though summer and fall foliage lie at the foot of leafless trees and bushes bereft of berries, the soil holds tight to seeds and roots, and fallen leaves wrap them in propagating warmth. Fertilities start. Maybe winter is the beginning of clarity. Silhouetted against skies, oaks and maples stand naked, devoid of leaf and stem, a barrenness that sanctions an exposition of light and color, featuring peeping morning suns and showy strata of sunsets. Maybe winter has its beginning in what seems like sleep to us. Perhaps it's just a pause, pregnant with life awaiting birth, an indrawn breath on the precipice of an exhale, thawing shards of ice, a prologue whose brevity is prophet of fullness to follow, an invigorating silence forerunning suspense, or a rest that develops depth and creates rhythm and melody before a great burst of song. This humorous poem is also about age, particularly becoming Medicare eligible, and the flood of phone calls from insurance companies that are inundating me again during open enrollment. The title of the poem is Spam, as if it's a woman's name, Spam. Receiving a phone call from Spam. And just a heads up, the last word is 65, not 65. Spam. Now that I'm nearly 65, she has become incessantly concerned about my well-being, my health, particularly about the matter of insurance, calling me every day, several times a day, from various area codes or one area code with multiple numbers in sequence, ringing from the top of the day to the bottom of the night, often in the middle of meals, changing her voice and accent, with chickens or children clucking in the background. Unless I'm caught off guard, I don't generally answer, but when I do, she hesitates and becomes excited when I greet her and surprised when I say I'm uninterested, and astounded, I'm certain, when I hang up. Next time when she rings, and she will, I'll let her know she need not bother. I'll let her know I'm 60 fine. This next poem is one of my favorites in the collection. It's an allegory. After hearing this poem, most listeners say that they can put a name to many of the characters, but we won't do that. It's called Pity's Party. In an attempt to lift her February face, Pity threw a party. Her guest list was short. It'd be a party of 4. She'd invite 3 of her longtime friends, judgment, criticism, and opinion, and get a sitter for her own children, Ruth and Mercy. She'd ask her guests also to oblige. She'd serve a simple homemade fare of humble pie and 3-layer cake, as Pity chose not to put on airs, truthfully rating her baking a modest 6 out of 10. She chose to wear a sweater embellished with a grape cluster over her heart, and forewent the pearls, which she deemed too much for this party, deciding instead to wear it to an upcoming barbecue. Where to seat the 3 at the table was problematic, as each would want to take the top. In the end, she placed a pair of chairs on either side for harmony's sake. She unburdened her guests upon their arrival of soggy coats and bags and leaking umbrellas, for the sky was spitting cold rain. Judy, descended from a long line of Judys, arrived first, and with her children in tow, deceit, delusion, and little charlatan. They took the plumpest chairs and spread out their own organic snacks, while Judy eyed the buffet and questioned whether Pity had made the cake herself, and wondered whether Pity's invitation had an ulterior motive. Judy often wore heels, but this evening she seemed intent on elevating herself so far above the other guest that she could view the dark, spreading roots of the others close. Judy made it her business to note the deficiencies of each as they arrived, but failed to notice that she herself wore 1 blue and 1 black shoe, because she had dressed in the dark so as not to disturb her sleeping spouse Frank. Pity, however, intentionally overlooked Judy's slip-up, and instead audibly complimented Judy's shapely pointed and painted nails. Critta Cindy, whose eyes rolled every time her unusual name was mispronounced, arrived right on time and handed Pity her coat, but kept on her hat that exaggerated her height, for she was in all honesty quite squat. The hat was not only too tall, but too large, and commanded Critta Cindy's constant attention, as every few seconds it slipped and obscured her vision. But this blinding did not prohibit Critta Cindy from pointing out a stray wisp of hair that fell across Pity's line of sight. Nor did it prevent her from pointing out the dusty baseboards and corner crumbs Pity's slovenly housekeeper had surely missed. Critta Cindy then chose to sit facing the sofa where sat Judy's 3, who she scrutinized as she held up the unwieldy brim of her heavy hat. Opine arrived a few minutes late, fashionably late in her words, but too late in Pity's mind, as the coffee had already cooled. Leaving her dripping umbrella in the stand, she commented on the nuisance of the rain, dismissing the farmer's complaint of drought. Looking in the hall mirror Pity had chosen for its clarity, Opine looked past her over-tight blouse that strained at the buttons and merely poofed her blondish hair that she asserted made her look younger. She clomped around in her flats, thinking herself taller than her slight 5'6" height, and announced she had just penned a brilliant poem she wished to share, and did so as the others listened intently. In response, Judy scrunched her brows, and Critta Cindy muttered a little too loudly. Pity thought it tried it best, but kept the appraisal to herself. It was only when the four aligned themselves, two on a side, that it occurred to Pitty, who could see her own clear reflection in the hall mirror, that each guest had failed to bring the one favor she had expected. Not one of them brought joy. I read a lot about the simple living of my childhood, the places, the people, and I went to UNA, by the way, live in Huntsville now, and used to do exhibitions of student work when I taught at Rogers High School, right here at Kennedy Douglas. Did an art workshop right here a few years ago. But I write about the simple places and the people of my childhood. This is one about my elementary days. It's called So Much. The last word in each line actually composes the entirety of William Carlos Williams' poem, which reads, "So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens." It's one of my favorites, meaning the simple stuff matters. So much. We all colored inside and sniffed the purple lines so fragrant and ate the flour and salt glue, much to the dismay of our teachers, who disciplined, depends on whom you ask, with a shoe, a paddle, or ruler upon an open palm, recited pledge, prayer, and verse, sang America, Farajaka, and Red River Valley, ate mashed potatoes on a wheel of bologna, played crack the whip and ran barrel races on playground grass or wooden floors glazed with oil, and cinder block classrooms overheated with coal delivered down a chute and cooled only by rain and late summer swelter. A single water fountain served all of us as we lined up beside our teachers in our dusty rubber-toed sneakers. The only division we knew was in the white trays that segregated our corn, carrots, and legs of chicken. Thank you. This one is written about a homeless man that would come to our house when we lived in Sheffield. He came to our house multiple times on Saturdays when we lived just off Jackson Highway. It is titled Orlando, the Man, Not the City. "Daddy, it's Orlando." Nearly every Saturday morning, he would appear in his wool cap and what was left of a hunting jacket at our aluminum storm door that barely clung to its frame, and knocked lightly, politely. The children knew him by name and weren't the least unsettled, but opened the unlocked door and announced his showing, whereupon my husband would greet this friend who asked for help just this once, as he did every time. And every time, Hal would point to the dinged up metal bucket leaned against the red shingled house and suggest that Orlando fill it with field rocks to help clear the garden. And every time, Orlando obliged and lugged back the 15-minute load in exchange for a home-cooked meal from our table, meager as it was. Some years later, when newspapers were still paper and deaths were still noted, I heard Hal, seated at the kitchen table, sigh aloud, "It's Orlando." Thank you. And the final poem I'd like to read is a villanelle. I like writing villanelles. I have multiple villanelles. It's a fixed form poem, and I like it because it's a challenging structure. It's the last poem in Searching for a Song, and it's meant as sort of an anthem for living life, and it's called Loose Your Spirit. Don't lose your spirit, loose your spirit. From rain and flood, fragrant blooms unfold. Turn your eyes skyward, expect the mist to lift. Draw power from the light, but grow not faint. For heat refines and hallows hardened souls. Don't lose your spirit, loose your spirit. Grip, but do not fall under fear's frozen drift. Stand firm, and onto strong convictions hold. Turn your eyes skyward, expect the cold to lift. Though north winds blow frigid, don't forget warm west suspirations with strength are stowed. Don't lose your spirit, lose your spirit. Arid soil might be too poor to plant, but drought forges iron-hard foundations for the bold. Turn your eyes skyward, expect the dust to lift. Stroll hills, ascend mountains, stumbling, don't quit. Convert coals of weariness into gems and gold. Don't lose your spirit, lose your spirit. Turn your eyes skyward, expect the gray to lift. Thank you.
Get this turned around a little bit better. Jeanie. Well, it's not, it's a correction, not to it. Maybe a little too far.
So is everyone able to hear okay?
Yeah, I mean, the in-person audience is.
Well, you're right up on it, so. You guys in the back, can you hear okay? Yeah. All right. Turn it up.
Thank you, Donna. Where'd you go? Oh, there you are. Sorry. Jeanie can't hear and I'm blind. Our next poet is Jeanie Manders. He's an author, historian, and poet who deployed 3 times to the Middle East with the U.S. Army National Guard. The Desert Calls, his book published by 7 Points Press, is a cycle of poems that explores his deployment experiences. Although many of the poems are highly personal, he chose to publish them to help other veterans, and also helps all of us to understand the experience of veterans, for which we are forever grateful. Thank you. Jeanie Manders.
First of all, I want to say thank you to the 7 Points Press for giving me this opportunity. I do a lot of writing. I write history, and I feel like this is the most important and impactful thing that I've written, and it's certainly the most important to me. And so I very much appreciate the support and encouragement of the press. So let me start with where once I stood. Upon the sidewalk scarred I came, and balked as the MPs cordoned off where yesterday I stood and talked. Now blown apart when mortars struck, littered by glass that shone in the light and masonry white strewn about in broken pieces and pebbles undone. Fragments where my footsteps had run, the sun now hidden by streams of smoke, the burning building casting its light as crowds gathered, held fast in lines, till medics took the mangled bodies past, and stretchers groaning and shouting in pain, as we stood aside for the slain, and gained a glimpse of their wounds, the bandaged limbs with blood dripping, red-flooded desert cams torn open and studded with shrapnel forlorn, leaving a stain on the sidewalk and walls where stood they, fain to heed the siren's call, till fallen, disdaining fate has dropped the bombs. Yet hours earlier I passed innocently, unaware that casual walk might be my last. Oh, how fickle the fate that fell on me, who should have died however late, were it not for some unknown destiny. Now it's an unique feature of Middle Eastern climate that even though we think of deserts as being hot, in fact they have winters. but their daytime winter temperatures were typically in where I was in Iraq were 70 or 80 degrees, and their nighttime temperatures would then drop down into the 40s. And so there literally was this huge gap in that made you just feel the coldest you've ever been, even though it wasn't below freezing. So this is called the cold of night. The sun that warms below the horizon dips as orange-faced as sapphire, purple, and black. And with the darkened night invades the cold, held in check by light, heat, and cloudless days, as temperatures drop some 40 degrees, forming frosts on hearts and sandy ground, hands numb and voices dumb as breath constricts, while comes shivering that slips into my chest, no matter how many layers I now wear. Grateful for escape from heat and flame momentarily, yet soon I blame the chills for fading feelings of love and wish I could escape. So beg the warmth of day return to heart revive, and hope now for the dawn that soon will come. For better is the drought heat and desert pains than to feel nothing again in the cold of night. So this poem is called L'appel du vide, which is a French term for the call of the void. Most people are aware that the suicide rate among military members is higher than the general population. And part of that's intentional. Some people have called the living a life of danger and being drawn to danger as being, suicide over years, because you continually put yourself at risk. And so this is a poem about that feeling that we've all had. While sitting 3 stories high, legs dangling down, a voice came nigh and whispered in my ear, "You have power to fly, so leap from safety into the sky and do not fear the ground." I peered into the void, pulled by the urge and surging desires to escape confines of earth, and pain flooded my brain as fire. And then I stood and strode away. While driving through Arab streets, my weapon drawn, a voice then dawned while striving in my heart. "Shoot the spies, once sawn down and dead, they'll hail you hero, not pawn of reckless deeds." The cold stare of callous, war-hardened men awoke in me an unseen threat that called for bold action once met to kill those who'd kill us. And then I looked away into a little child. While cleaning my weapon for the umpteenth time, a voice behind me whispered that I might hear, "Escape the unkind words and pain of life. Fear not unwinding rounds, but wonder how it feels to die." I stared upon the shining brass, the chamber empty, the choice of life or death, with bated breath that slided in and trigger pull, and then secured them safely in my chest. While living life in peace and love each day, then comes the call of strife once more at bay. "Shut up," I tell the voice, but still it whispers in my ear. So this poem takes a little bit of explanation, and there's a story that goes with it. So they flip over the right page. So I was part of an IT team when I was in Iraq, and there was this store that was Iraqi owned on our base, and they had an internet cafe where people would go and get online and chat with their family at home and so forth. Well, it turned out that several people who had used the cafe had gotten threats. Their family members had gotten threats at home. And so we came in and had a bust and with the MPs and seized all of their servers, and we're going to go through all of the data to try to find out who was responsible, which we couldn't find the exact information, but in any case, the Muslim culture being what it is, they all invited all of the people who busted them to dinner for the sake of hospitality. And so this is a poem called At Muhammad's Table. At Hajj Muhammad's table, we were invited to come and dine. Hospitality displayed in a moment of tranquility as enemies and friends together ate as once upon a time. The feast laid out on tables sparse within an upper room, the olives crushed with spices mixed and poured upon our meat, black tea so strong in cups of brass it looked like wine, the broken yet unleavened bread passed from hand to hand, while sitting near, unknown to most, was one who had betrayed and sought the untimely death of those who came to save. How bittersweet the fellowship of neighbors who ate as friends, yet knowing after dinner ended, violence still awaits, as each returns to sides for which they're born or joined, in seeking war forlorn for heaven and hell yet unknown. But still the table calls for each to dine with peace. So the last poem is the last in the book, and it's called the Desert's Call. And so it's one of the two poems that in the book ends that the book is titled after. And in this case, it sort of summarizes the entire experience in the entire book in the sense of the continual feeling of being haunted by your deployment experience, and yet it helps to give us hope that there's something beyond that. So I woke to the adhan droning unending, echoing in Arab tongue, as young Muzan from minaret of stone calls to prayer, sending the words unknown, winding through thought, stoking passion, bending will to hate or love, to return from desert lands far flung. I hear the sound in my dreams, reverberating in hours waking, where it seems I remain in deserts quaking before towering fears, where cowers the brave, steering to cloudless days beaming bright, until my vision clears and I hear the desert's call as one unslaking. Return to lands of drought, heat, and overbearing light unrestrained. Go back where fallen slain now beat to dust, lie in churning sand. Then come to burning brands and nightmares caught while turns thine eye, till healing is gained, wounds treated, and learn ye from doubts and pain. Yet now that I can see, I can heed the call without taking my leave. For as I was in the desert wastes in my need, so all the desert lives in me. I am dead and bereaved, dry like fall trees. I embrace pain once fled, and stand tall in flame with one whose deeds I trace, whose name I cleave. Until at last I abandon the barren wilds for spring that blossoms eternal, where showers freshen, the wind sings, and flowers bloom like a child. In gardens mild I meet you in the bower, where ends my suffering doom. There love once reviled will chasten and restore, where looms another call. It rains and shines over hills and valleys low, through wastes and lands green, until restored, however slow, I fear not pain, nor tours of deserts that kill, but hasten not, enjoying with bands of men scenes disdained in shrill winds, and trust, once slain, I'll be renewed, chased and filled unto the vision seen.
One of the things this reminds me of, just listening to poets read, is that there's nothing quite like hearing the poet read in their own voice. You get a sense of the embodiment through which the poem comes. At the same time, as I listen, I think I really need to read that, and so I can get all of this and study it a little bit and let it live inside me a little bit so I can really begin to understand what's going on. There's one way to do that. Buy books. Okay, these next two people don't really need me to introduce them, and that would be true if it was anywhere, pretty much anywhere in the country and even other parts of the world. I know Italy is very fond of both of them, and they're both very fond of Italy. So introducing them is just, well, anyway, I'm going to do it. Jeanie is an award-winning poet, literary arts leader. She is a retired founding director of the Alabama Writers Forum. Her books include The Myth of Water, poems from the life of Helen Keller, The Seasons Bear Us, and White for Harvest. In 2024, she received the Albert B. Head Legacy Award for her work as a poet and literary arts activist. And that's just the beginning. Wayne Sides, also, we could talk about him for days. We might. No. Okay. Wayne is a professor emeritus at the University of North Alabama Department of Art, and he has certainly been a force for the arts in the shows for at least 40 years. His photographs have been published widely and exhibited in museums throughout the country and around the world. Jeanie and Wayne have been collaborating since the mid-70s, when they were both students together at the University of Alabama. And the first time I ever heard of either one of them was right here, except it was down two houses back when Community Douglas was just one building, and they had a show called Litany for a Vanishing Landscape. And I came in with a friend of mine who was visiting from California, and he wanted to see what's going on. He was encouraging me to actually get out and do something, because I was reluctant. We're talking about the 80s. And in Florence, this was a dead town. But thanks to his encouragement, I discovered both these people, and I've been admiring their work ever since. So please welcome Jeanie Thompson and Wayne Sides.
Give us a second.
Give us a second, we just need to set up a few things. We have carnival rides and so forth. We have
What about the lamp?
I think we can get rid of this now.
Okay. Is everybody, I went and pushed the heat up because of the degrees. Are y'all comfortable with that?
I think we'll be okay.
Are y'all hot?
Not yet, it's kind of warm back there.
All right. And we'll get, after this, we'll have some refreshments and sell, and
Yeah.
books, so.
You know,
Thank you for your
you
patience.
have enough wine, you'll be all right. Set that aside, and take this one. There you go. I'll need one more chair, so.
Can you give us that chair? Sorry, we should have done it now.
Thank you. Yeah, we just need to get out of the way there. What we might do is, on this one, we might turn the light on there, turn this light on, and put that light back on, okay? Oh,
Is
there you
that bad?
There you are.
Don't like it or like it?
Well, you want to be able to
Okay, you can see the
Yeah.
be able to see, you know, so.
Can you lift it up?
No, we can't lift it up.
Okay.
But if
Yeah.
you can't see, well, there's some space right there, you could actually go in that, somebody could come in that space right there.
Yeah, if you're sitting in that couch in the back, you're
Or even over
you're in
here.
a hole. Yeah, it's that's the name of my first band, Funky Hole. Actually, it was my name in high school. Oh yeah, that was different.
Think about the children. Woody.
You're gonna be off there, right?
We can turn it off.
Is that better? No, I mean, I think maybe it's, okay.
Okay, here we are. Yeah, the book. Here's a book.
All right.
Like Gaia. What does that mean? Basically, Mother Earth. Both Jeanie and I have been a real fan of gardening and growth, and many people in here I know are as well. And I like to experiment with different plants and so forth, and it kind of led to this book for me, because we've both been working together doing collaborations, like I say, since basically in undergraduate school. We won't go through all that, but I had a show at UNA, University of North Alabama, last year, and it was, we're going to show just a couple of slides from that. This photograph here is basically the photograph that's on the cover. And most all these from the original show was things from my own yard and garden. And yeah, okay, there we go. That's a setup from the show, and we're just showing a couple of things from that. And Jeanie was at the show, and she also read a poem, right? Yes, she did. She didn't remember.
I talked about something.
Yeah, I think you read one of the poems, the Litany poem. So that was our first book together that we did. It was a show that traveled for a couple of years. It's kicked off right here, next door, and traveled for 2 years. And as it traveled, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. That's another thing. But there's a book about that one too, and it's in there. We'll show it to you. But this show was about, I think at the beginning of photography, because I went back and used photograms, which is the oldest form of photography, and other types of photography from the basic 19th century. So that was kind of an overriding thing too. You can go to the next. And these are just a few things that happened to be in the show. And Jeanie was inspired to do another collaboration, going back and using some of her photographs from back in, she'll talk about that a bit. This is also, go back one. This is also something I do a lot, which is I like to start plants, but I start them in these test tubes so I can watch the abstraction of the roots and then photograph it. You can go to the next one. And then I also like to see what the plants look like really close, so I take them apart, put them under my microscope and look at them and photograph. And this was my assistant at the time, and that was one of the elephant ears that I grew, and he was hiding behind it. That's a little tiny one there. Okay, you go next. So this is basically, these are photographs. You put the actual plant, in this case the plant, down on light sensitive material and expose it and develop it. That's basically the oldest form of photography. It's before electricity even, so you can go to the next. And these next few they have a kind of look of early 19th century on purpose, because I wanted the spirit of that to come through. And the next one.
And how were these in the show? Can you tell them how they were in the show?
Well, they were in frames.
Okay.
Yeah, along with some daguerreotypes and also tintypes from some Civil War tintypes. So I put together some antique photographs to go along with what I was doing with this. And that's an elephant ear on the right, which is really
You know, on the
close.
mic. You know, on the mic.
What's that?
When you point like that, you get away from the mic.
Okay. They can probably hear me. And this is the last one. As I was going out into the woods and starting to take photographs, this is something I came upon, and I ended up, just by chance, putting these two images. One image, I flopped it, and it led to a whole series of photographs. And you actually see the image, you start to see all these unexpected faces and demons and
Some
things.
people may not know what flopped it means.
You take a photograph and then you flop it this way, like that. Flop. So that side over there is exactly the same as that side over there.
Is that the technical term?
It's one that people use, yeah.
It's a photographer term.
Flopping. It's also what they do on in the soccer world, you know, when they want to act like they're hurt, they flop, you know. They're doing it now in the NFL. But yeah, it's the same on both sides. It's the same photograph. It's just it's just been flopped over, or you know. Okay. Now, Jeanie.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here. Wayne and I have created things where we have photographs and poems or writing that go together. And I wanted to say before we get into all this that he's not creating a photograph that illustrates what I wrote. And I'm not writing a description, definition of what he photographed. It's not journalistic. And so the photograph and the writing, what were we saying, Mr. Trey? What was the word you used to describe it? They don't illustrate each other, they illuminate each other, okay? So in this one, I asked Wayne to pair something that had to do with the sunset and an open field with a poem that I had written about Anne Sullivan, who was Helen Keller's teacher. I feel weird here in this position. Anybody in the room not know who Anne Sullivan was? It's okay if you don't.
I think they're all from
Okay.
here, so they know.
Anne Sullivan was brought to Alabama to teach Helen Keller. That's, people know that. But just imagine that you are about 21 years old and you've had a very, very traumatic life. You've had eye problems yourself. You've been in an almshouse. You've ended up in a school for kids who are also blind, and by sheer luck, you've managed to claw your way up to civilization and be treated like a real person. That's about how bad it was for Anne Sullivan. She was an Irish immigrant. But because she was so smart and she was a natural teacher, she was tapped by Alexander Graham Bell to come and try to teach this unruly thing that was living in Tuscumbia called Helen how to read and interact. So I would imagine what it must have been like for Anne when she came on the train from Boston to Tuscumbia. She came from a city to a plantation, post-Civil War landscape house. What was that like for her? What did she think? We put people like this up on a pedestal and they're in this vaunted position and we think that they're so thrilled to be there. But I just thought, what if there was a point where she was standing there and she was going, why am I here? What in the world? What am I supposed to do here? And so that was the persona poem that I started playing with for Anne Sullivan. I shot a very bad photograph kind of like that, and then I wrote the poem, and then I talked to Wayne about what he could do. So this is Wayne's illumination of that poem, and I'll read that poem later. But that's just, I tell that whole story because this is how this collaboration goes. It's very organic. One thing sparks another thing. There's no rule book for it. There's no recipe book for it. sometimes really fabulous things happen, and sometimes they're, not as fabulous. But I think that this new poem that I'm trying, I still am not 100% finished with it. It really illustrates how the field began to illuminate what I was thinking about her as she was in the landscape.
And this will make more sense when she reads the poem, so.
Yeah, but I was
We're not gonna go
interested.
through every photograph, so this
Yeah.
is just starting it out, but we want you to be able to see the photographs that are in the book. We'll comment a bit, but, we're gonna get through this part and then let her read, and it'll all make more sense. Yeah. Go ahead. This is a photograph I made out in the country here, right after harvest. And it inspired another photograph, another poem for
It was
Jeanie.
matched with one.
Yeah,
We
matched.
matched it with one. We were trying to find one to go with my poem about the Wheeler Wildlife Refuge. And in that poem, the character's walking around, it's a very old poem, and the character's walking around trying to, it's just talking about what's there, and it's sort of a meditative poem. It's, like I said, it's very old. But this was the one that we decided to put with it, because in the poems, there's a lot of imagery going through the speaker's head, the speaker's trying to say it. And this was kind of like if Jackson Pollock painted a cornfield after harvest, that's what it would look like. So I can't explain exactly why it seemed to go together, but it seemed to you like they went together, right?
Yeah, well, and as Jeanie was talking about, we've done collaborations for, decades, and as we've gotten over the decades, I think we were talking about this yesterday, about the maturity of artists as you go through the years. It's a different energy when you start, when you're young, to when you get to here. I mean, some things are much easier now, and you don't feel like you have to take the energy up here. You can put it here, and then you use techniques that are gifts that you have. But
You trust your technique.
you trust the technique more. But what was quite different about this one is this particular collaboration is, and I've done other collaborations with other people, where it's a call and recall. I'm not like with Jake, I'll send a photograph and that'll inspire a poem, and sometimes vice versa. This one was quite different because we were working a lot with things that already existed, and poems that were already there. So it was quite different for me to work that way. But I love that challenge. I always like the challenge. And this was the title of one of the books.
How to Enter the River. It was a very old poem, first book, first collection.
Yeah.
And this, doesn't that look like that's instructing you how to enter the river? Go with it. It was kind of sweet and nostalgic.
Yeah.
But I like it. It was okay.
I think this one is actually one of the only ones it's different in the book. It's in the book there's a different photograph, but it was not available at the time we did the slideshow. But it was stormy egrets flying before a storm, and we had several that we looked at to go with it. And this was a finalist. But we ended up using another one. You'll see when you see the book.
Yeah, the book picture is very different, but the poem is about crossing over a bridge and seeing a flock of snowy egrets fly up right before a storm comes. So it's a sort of an arcing image. It's a snapshot kind of image, and the poem is pretty short and imagistic. I don't know if the snowy egrets would be up that high.
Well,
If they'd been that far up in the sky, but anyway.
it's okay.
It's okay, because like I said, what's happening is there's some kind of illumination that's going back and forth. It's not an
illustration.
definition, it's not an illustration.
We're not trying to illustrate, we're trying to get the spirit of defeating them.
Right.
The next one, this is the litany trees from our first collaboration on a book, A Litany for a Vanishing Landscape. And this is one that, from that actual book, which is here, you can take a look at that.
And I have something to say that we were driving around in Tuscaloosa County and it was really cold and it was football season because we were listening to the game on the radio, I think. And we came upon this house and the Wayne was photographing and I was making the notes for the poem at the same time. That didn't usually happen. So that one is really special because it was sort of a come together moment.
Yeah, it was like 40 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And this one, Jeanie will read this one, and she'll explain that when we go. I think it'd be better. The next one, though, she'll explain it in a minute. This one is a very special poem. We hoped that this little fellow would be here tonight, but
Yeah,
he
it's
couldn't
the
make it.
model, the young model who's holding the shark's tooth.
So this is
Ozzy.
it's the only human in the book, and this is he's modeling because Jeanie wrote a poem many years ago about her son and them going shark tooth hunting, and so we wanted to use that, but we didn't have a photograph of him, so I found a child that was the same age and took him down to the river here, and with the mother's help, and some of you may know Alexandra Chessman, who's an artist and art teacher. And that's her son. He's holding a big shark's tooth. So, yeah. You can go to the next one. This one is, it has to do with, I think, Italy, and it has to do with blackberries growing. And this is blackberries in bloom, not far from here.
We were, Wayne, were you on that walk? I can't remember, with Daniele.
Maybe.
We were walking up, this was in the Afwan Alps up in Tuscany, and we were walking this path up. We had a destination to get to a little chapel up there, but our host was actually at that time one of the elected officials of the town, Pietro Santa, and also a pediatrician. And at one point, he just stops and scales up this wall and goes way up there like a bear and grabs these blackberries, comes down, and then he puts his hand out and hands me the blackberries. And it was just such a wonderful gesture. And at that time, there was some sort of international conflict happening between the United States. I don't know if it was at the beginning of one of the wars. I'm sorry, I apologize. I can't say exactly what it was, but what was in the air was this idea that America was, at it again. And so I thought it was a moment. It was a really nice moment.
You never know what's going to inspire art.
Yeah.
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 This one is, what's the name of this one?
Is this the one airplane? I'm sorry, y'all. We just don't seem very together here.
No, you gotta go the other way. You want the wrong way. No, wrong way.
Actually, this is the one that's snowy.
No, it's this
No.
one right here. You gotta keep going. There it is.
Fragment with border. Okay. This is a poem about a landing in France, and the person's looking out the window and seeing little bits of things, and so there's fragments, and the imagery in it is fragmented, and so we did some clouds.
Yeah, yeah.
We didn't have an Air France plane we could include, but it has longer lines, it has indented lines, it's a different form, but
Yeah.
we probably ought to keep going.
This one's among the ancient olive trees.
Yeah.
This is a photograph I made.
Also Italy.
In Italy. So, like I said, this is an international book. So this is up in the ancient olive grove. It's just it was an amazing place in the spring, and there's wildflowers growing all over around them, and the Mediterranean is blowing scent of this as you're up there. It's like you're in some kind of Walt Disney film or something. But some of these trees are several hundred years old.
And this was another situation where Wayne and I were we were in the location at the same time. In fact, I had a camera I was playing with. But that didn't always happen, you know. And so if you were thinking about doing this yourself, you know, as a writer with an artist, you don't have to be present with them in the space in whatever's happening. You can do this, you know, virtually, or you can share it. And to tell you how old this was, when we did Litany, he was sending me slides. I feel like Leanne, slides. And
We still call it a slideshow.
I was projecting them on the wall in my study. There wasn't any internet. There wasn't any Instagram of that stuff where you could send it back and forth. So it was pretty labor intensive to get a look at them. But it was thrilling when I finally got them and I saw them. I was like, wow, okay. So,
The last image, and then we're gonna go to the reading, so,
Which will be short.
you wanna comment on that one?
The poem or the photograph?
Well, the point, this is in my yard, by the way, so.
in the book, it looks real different. It's got more of a pink than a red cast in it. Wayne gave me a little seedling of the cleome plant. Do you know what a cleome is?
The actual leaves look just like a marijuana, so.
Yeah, the leaves look like cannabis. And so I was walking around in my patio and I was looking at that little plant and I was like seeing those leaves and I was like, you know, you could think maybe that somebody had dropped some seeds in here or what is this, you know, but that's not what it was, but you can see. So it started off as kind of a goofy, funny poem and then it sort of took a political turn at the very end where I had to kind of stomp my foot and say something. So what I've enjoyed about working with Wayne is that he has this sort of childlike view of the world, and you never know what he's going to do. He's going to wander off at some point from you while you're out doing things, and you'll have to go find him, and you just don't know what it is that he'll be photographing. So I really appreciate having worked with him, and Jake, I really appreciate you having done my Gaia. And how many writers in the room? I know there's one right here. How many writers? Okay.
I'm a
All right.
songwriter, I'm not sure if that's.
So that counts. That counts.
That's me.
How many photographers or artists? One. Okay.
There's one.
Well, I would just encourage you, if you are a writer, to find a buddy who is in visual arts or a musician. We don't even have time for me to talk about that, but I recently collaborated with a musician, and it's hard for me to read my poems right now because I can't hear the music behind it that was made for those. So I don't know how I'm going to get over that because it's too expensive to do.
We'll home.
Yeah. Okay, so now what are we doing here, Wayne?
We're setting up for you.
Okay, do y'all need to stand up and wiggle for a minute? If you do, go ahead. I'm going to read 3 poems. That's it.
All right.
Give me this one back.
It would help if we had a little more light.
More light.
Yeah,
So we can
turn
see.
the lights on now.
Yeah, that's good.
Jake, I might need your help. My strength in my right arm is right there, right now. Need to set that up first.
This microphone stand could use a little work. How high do you need to be?
Yeah, I can come over.
Is it? Go down a little bit?
Well, that's good, yeah. So you get to see how it's happening. There's nothing magical about this.
In the meantime,
Check, 1, 2. How's that? Is that okay?
River brought some posters. This is the tree lighting downtown, and that's going to be at 5 p.m. Sunday, the 23rd of November, and that's going to be exactly on North Court Street, right? So there's some of these out there, we'd like to pick them up. You don't want to miss this because it's pretty fantastic.
Community. Bring the lights to the community.
That's correct.
All right, I'll just read these in the order that I'll talk about them. The Anne Sullivan poem I want to also say that I was very influenced by looking at portraits by young African American painters of people in specific settings. And I should have gone back and done my homework and been able to say all these names, but I was really taken with the strength of these portraits. And so that was going along in my head when I started writing about Anne Sullivan in another persona, in another persona sequence. I had hoped that I could do an Anne Sullivan book, but her life was so much darker than Helen's, and there was so much more pain. I wasn't sure I wanted to go there, but I might try. She deserves it for sure. So this is called, so remember, I'm thinking that somebody has arrived on the train from Boston and they're in Tuscumbia and they are in a landscape they've never seen before and they're wondering what they should do. And there's a word in here, cinquefoil, which is a yellow flower that you see in fields a lot. And I'm thinking about how somebody might have their hair pulled back with a yellow ribbon around it and then pull the ribbon out. So that's where that, I'm just trying to match some visual images. Anne Sullivan arrives in Alabama, 1888. An edge of dirt road, a dirt road bounding a field of cinquefoil that tumbles. Red dirt powdering, feet moving west. A cage of limbs against late sun pouring gold. Makes me want to flee, Helen. Why not? The silent field, the ripple of road, like stripped off ribbon, a field of tossing yellow cinquefoil, a heart that longs for silence. Where am I at this moment without a cricket or bird to name it summer, Alabama? Caught in sunlight, dropping to dusk. Turn to the field, turn back. No, I'm okay. Okay, so Wayne, lyrical trees or how to enter the river? Which one? Which one do you want? Lyrical trees or how to enter the river?
Lyrical trees.
Okay. All right. This is a longish looking poem with short lines. And it's also included, I'm going to plug it, it's included in the CD I made with Larry Mitchell, and he wrote the music to go with it. And so it's really weird to read this poem to you tonight and not hear a guitar crank up and a violin, and so see how I do. The lyrical trees. It's winter, and we've turned once again to the landscape for some scrap of truth to confound us, to tell us who we are. The land is cold, burrowed deep into itself. A brown furze covers the pastures where cattle huddle against one another in the bitter afternoon light. Across the field, around the deserted house, over the trees, the vines of summer make a ghost network holding fast for spring. It's all set to pull us down into its slow heartbeat. All but these three, rising in twists that dancers dream to imitate. In love with this season, when their beautiful bare limbs, their smooth bark, can sing and move upward in the shattering air. Those lyrical trees. I changed a word in this poem. Instead of heartbeat, it was the word metabolism. And when I was recording with Larry and I said that word metabolism, I could hear it in the headphones, I looked at him and I said, I got to get rid of that word. And so then it came to me to say heartbeat, so I'm glad that happened. All right, now, Cleom, Wayne, or shark's tooth?
Sharks Tooth.
Okay.
You do both.
All right. This is called Mother Memory. It's a pretty standard format where a parent is thinking about something with a child. And then I try to take it over into sort of a magical realism, fantasia of what it would have been like 70 million years ago in this spot where there was an ocean, you know, and big sharks. But now we're walking along a little pebbly bottomed creek looking for Shark Tooth souvenir. Mother Memory at Shark's Tooth Creek, Greene County, Alabama. As I lead my son down the creek, brown water swirling to our thighs, I think of the Bahamas, undulating blue, closing quietly over our heads, feet gripping the pebbly bottom, pebbly bed. We breathe easily under a tree canopy, holding the tropical heat at bay, sifting our way through silt in search of shark's teeth from 70 million years ago. I stop to cup a handful of sandy gravel and spread it on my palm so he can find the slender needle. When I spread the pieces, he lifts the ebony charm from smooth stones, and I wonder what power takes shape before this young boy's eyes. Does the dorsal fin graze his calf? Does he feel the terrible rush of water sucking everything in? Can he know that moment when life transmutes to other matter, like an ocean calming to creek water where we stand, passing an ancient creature's remains from hand to hand, passing an ancient creature's remains from hand to hand. And apropos of my having the crying reflex, there is a wonderful poem that was published on by the Poetry Foundation. As some of you may get the daily Poetry Foundation things through email, by the poet C.K. Williams. Do you know that name? And the poem is called I Hate. And it's about when you have that reflex. So I'm not the only person that it happened to. Okay, now, are we through, you think?
No.
No. Okay, Cleon. Okay, so this is a very weird poem that I'm not going to apologize for it. It just kind of goes all over the place. And see what you think. Cleon 2025 is the newest one. Does poetry have to be our loudspeaker, our psychotherapist, a substitute for doing the hard work of getting people out to vote, our personal platform? This is a serious question. Maybe poetry is like the Cleon plant, sprouting leaves that look like cannabis, so that you may think a stranger or a playful friend has dropped seeds in your patio garden. She, the plant, builds a small ladder of non-potent leaves in preparation for the announcement of a flower. Beginning as small buds, unassuming as snapdragons, tinged pink, it hovers there, while tiny wire-like tendrils begin to spoke out like a satellite and claim the space around the flower. It might float there and entice us to touch and cup these tendrils like the nimbus of your child's hair around his singularly amazing small skull. My friend gave me one of these for my journey home to watch, to touch. At first I thought it had died in transit, but today it hangs in its tiny nimbus, surrounded by garden giants, flopped over cannas flattened by rain. The Cleon is there, taking stock of her new surroundings, orbiting herself, completely, happily, unaware of humans and weather. Thank you.
Made it through.
Okay, guys,
Go sign.
go eat, go drink, and buy books.
It's a wrap.
Thank you.
Please, thank you. You're a
Thank you
great
so much.
audience.
Please go and